we're rolling.
Good morning and welcome to Scott and Adam Suck at Betting. I kind of like the name. It's really growing on me, bud.
Well, you know why it's growing is because it's gone from Adam and Scott to Scott and Adam. So
Oh, is that what has happened here?
You're like, yeah, it sounds better.
A Freudian slip, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just also that over time it has been proven that this is accurate.
Yeah, we do suck at gambling. So we are consistent and great gamblers.
I really thought I'd start to turn it around. You know, I really honestly believed that with a little bit more experience with it, I'd get better at not just like having 3 beers and then live betting at the 7th inning, and just not happening.
The more I gamble, the better I'll get. That is, I think, every gambler's catchphrase. So
I've got a little system where I just keep gambling.
Yeah. Gamble through the losses. It's fine. I have 2 legs. They can't break them all.
All right, so what we're going to do here...
Weird side note that this is going to wrinkle my brain until I get it out. I watched Wild Hogs yesterday. You've seen Wild Hogs?
Okay. I have not.
Okay, it's like the Tim Allen, John Travolta...
Yes.
Anyways.
Motorcycles, yes.
Middle-aged motorcycle guys. And there's just a scene where like the William H. Macy is a hostage of like the real biker gang. And they're like, oh, you get out here and whatever, or we're going to break his legs. And then he's like, don't do it. I'm a computer programmer. I don't need my legs. And then they're like, okay, we're going to break his hands. And he's like, oh, definitely come then. I need my hands. So, anyways. Gambling, breaking legs. This is my head. Sorry, this is a stupid tangent.
Well,
Let's get back to
now
our
now you just spoiled wild. You spoiled Wild Hogs for everybody.
Yeah, 2007 classic. If you haven't seen it, sorry for spoiling it. That's good.
So we do have lots to get to here. We're going to talk Jeff Nelson and the umpiring over the year even, but just this series things have kind of boiled over a few times. Speaking of boiling over, Brian Baker and Teoscar Hernandez got into it. The bench is cleared. Things got hot. That Baltimore-Toronto rivalry is back.
Yeah, I mean, Rougned Odor rumbling with the Blue Jays. I heard Batista was lacing up his cleats just in case.
Yeah,
so
people can't help themselves with that man in the lineup when it comes to Toronto. They're all over it.
It's a good rivalry, man. I'm happy to be a rival with the Orioles. Like,
me too.
Oh,
it's nice they're back. Well, people keep saying when Baltimore's good, it's good for baseball. And as a rival in the AL East, I cannot agree more. Like, it just makes everything so much more fun when they're just not dog shit.
Much better rival than the Rays, too. I find the Rays are just, like, frustrating. And, yeah. The Yankees can have the Red Sox, and they can have each other. The Rays can be their own nightmare, but
the Rays are more methodical.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as fun watching them slowly dismantle the Jays in front of you, you know? Like,
yeah, that's
making
true.
all sorts of bullpen choices and stuff like that, and you're just like, ah.
There's a Bond villain analogy somewhere in there, but I can't find it. So maybe for Friday I'll have who are the Tampa Bay Rays in terms of Goldfinger James Bond analogy.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm way off the rails this morning. You need to keep me focused here, Scott.
We both have just way off the rails here. We should mention we are, of course, going to talk some betting as well, which is what this segment is all about. We have partnered with BetStamp, and basically what BetStamp is an aggregator for betting sites. It's going to give you the best line bets.
You know, like you do when you're traveling. You're like, what's the best rate on this hotel room or flight?
Yes.
Or
let me check Trivago. It's basically that.
It's Trivago for gambling.
If you're going to go to a hotel, you might as well get the best deal on it. And that's sort of the same thing here. If you're going to place a bet, you might as well make as much money on whichever site is giving you the best odds on whatever way you're betting. And that's exactly what BetStamp does. You do us a lot of good and a lot of help on the channel here if when you do sign up to BetStamp, you use the code WALKOFF. All one word. We don't get any cut of your losings or your winnings. We are just paid straight up, but it does affect being renewed for another 3-month, maybe a year period if we can hit our targets. So definitely very helpful if you can use the walk-off code on that. So let's get into umpiring here for a second, because it does affect the whole betting line. It's why the talk of robots continues to be so prevalent. And I mean, yesterday was another game where Jeff Nelson, obviously enemy number one with Blue Jays fans in 2022, surpassing all other umpires. Angel Hernandez is a man that sometimes I'm like, when I'm watching Jeff Nelson umpire, I'm like, imagine if it was Angel back there. That would be nice. Which is not something baseball fans have ever said. So kind of puts in perspective here. So Jeff Nelson, obviously, the history with the Blue Jays goes back to that game, I think it was May, where he got 64% of the calls correct. It was like the worst scorecard an umpire had been given. Like, it was just garbage.
That's crazy.
Everyone was upset. It supposedly cost the Jays 1.5 full runs, which is a lot. Then we watched the first game of the doubleheader, and Kevin Gausman got called for a balk.
Oh, was that Nelson that called him?
Yeah, from second base. That was Nelson who called him from second base.
Oh, my God.
And that was why Gausman was so furious, because you watch the post-game interview with Gausman, and he's like, I was just so mad because I knew he was going to do it. It just felt premeditated. It's like he was waiting for a moment to do it.
You don't even know what a strike is. Never mind what a balk is. That's what he's thinking. That's what he's afraid to say.
And then he was behind the plate last night, and oh my goodness, John Schneider at one point, I mean, obviously he gets ejected from the game after many bad calls on the outside corner. Now, I will give Jeff Nelson a little bit of credit here. He was making terrible calls on the outside corner for both teams. However, John Schneider had had enough, and then he gets ejected. When you're betting, like you've got propositions, right? You can go player by player, you can go team by team, but like the umpiring affects people who are betting so much, and I think this is why we are going to see robots in the next couple of years.
Can you bet on umpires yet? Is that a thing? Can I bet? Like, because I can do a prop bet on Bo Bichette over under 1.5 total bases today. Can I do like prop bet accuracy over under 85% for the home plate umpire?
I haven't seen it, but boy, I would love that.
Yeah.
Then all these bad umpires, all of a sudden fans would get behind them as there's money on the line. They're like,
there you go.
Make another bad call. We need this guy to call a ball when it's a strike.
What a stressful and terrible way to watch a baseball game that would be.
In 2024, when robots are umpiring, Jeff Nelson is the guy that, they can look back on and be like, thank you, Jeff Nelson. We appreciate
they'll have a little
the job.
Jeff Nelson patch on their shoulder.
Yeah, that's right.
The way we have that in, like, in memoriam stuff. So at least something like that.
So yesterday, I bet on the White Sox to beat Seattle.
They won the first game of that series.
They did win the first game.
How'd it go last night?
They lost yesterday.
Makes sense.
I was mad yesterday because I saw the prop bet for Bo Bichette, 1.5 bases over under, and I was like,
easy over right there.
Yeah. The hottest hitter in baseball. I should have friggin' put money on Bo, who stays hot.
Yeah.
Had that home run.
Well over 500 in September. Small sample size maybe, but
I mean, yeah. He's hitting 500 in this first week of September. I should have put my money on that, but I did not. By the way, for prop bets, very similar to what we were just talking about there. You scan MLB for who's hot and try and bet on that. I know our good buddy of the show, Craig Ballard, put his money on Bo Bichette getting an RBI and the over on the 1.5 there, and he won some money. Again, if you are going to place a bet stamp really helps you out because you can check all of the different sites and the lines.
Yeah, like I'm on prop bets right now for today's game. Bo Bichette, total bases. 5 different betting sites have the over-under at 1.5 total bases. But the odds, if you're taking the over, vary anywhere from like 120 to minus 125. So,
Right? That's a
it's extra $5
That's
on
massive.
your bet, right?
Yeah.
So if you're taking the under, they range from, I got minus 120 at bet 365 all the way to minus 107 at Pinnacle. So that's a big swing either way. So line shopping with BetStamp, very helpful.
Yes, it is.
Could we talk Alejandro Kirk and that play at home just while we're on the subject of bad? I guess I don't know if this is bad umping.
It's not umpiring.
Fall
it's
in
a
the
bad
same category,
rule.
though? It's a
Poorly
bad
written rule. Definitely.
So this is something that we've seen at least half a dozen times across the MLB this season. Feels like more often than that almost, but it's this block in the play
funny,
at
Adam?
home. Okay.
I did not notice it until the Minnesota series. And now it feels like I see it twice a week.
Okay, well, I was going to say that. I couldn't articulate it, but yeah, I feel like it's been 6 times this season, but also all of them have happened in the last month.
And I know that's not necessarily the way it's been across the league, but just as a Jays fan, until it affected us directly, I just wasn't
Now we're
noticing
looking
it. And
for
now
it,
it's
right?
like, now you're looking for it, and you're like, my God, this blocking the plate rule seems to come up twice a week now. Like,
Yeah, it's like when you buy a new car and then all of a sudden you see a Ford Escape everywhere on the highway. You're like, man, there's a lot of these things, eh? But I still don't understand this part of the rule, like that he was blocking the plate. So this is the bottom of 8th. It is a 7-5 game for the Orioles. The 8th run just crossed the plate, and now number 9 is on its way. I believe it's Adley Rutschman. Throw comes in from Lourdes Gurriel, great arm. Alejandro Kirk, standing flat-footed at home.
beats him by a mile.
Dead to rights. You can see Adley Rutschman right away. It's pointing. He's like, oh, something. I don't know what he's saying, but obviously something related to, I didn't have a lane or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It gets reviewed. It gets overturned right away.
Mm-hmm. Goes from the Jays getting out of the inning and the score being 8-5 to 9-5 and them still needing to work on getting out of that 8th inning. Yeah. So, number one, yesterday it hurt, but we kind of talked about it before we hit record, that it kind of felt like 8-5 going into the 9th was almost insurmountable anyways. But it's, you know,
yeah, it probably didn't change the actual win-loss outcome of that game. But it has before, like that Twins series. I think it happened again to the Twins like a week later.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like a 3-2 game, and that's the difference between being a tie game or taking the lead or whatever, right? It's I don't know. Is it being enforced differently this year, or is it just that recency bias, Scott? Because it feels like this is a rule that's been on the books for years now, right? The Buster Posey rule. This is a player safety thing. It just seems like this is happening more. So I feel like it's being enforced differently. Is this...
I think it's being called more to be enforced as well, right?
Do you think that since it happened in that Twins game, that more teams are now looking for it? Like they saw success challenging it that one time, and they go, "Oh, we could do that."
Well, you brought it up. You could tell Rutschman knew right away, right? Yeah. Like Adley knew. The second he came in, even though he knew he was out, he was calling. He was pointing at the bench.
We saw it with Whit Merrifield, like the day after we traded for him. It was the same thing, right? It was, he knew. He's like, this is technically a rule violation. Challenge it. I feel like that wasn't happening last year.
And it's a little frustrating because if you watch the play with Kirk yesterday, he came to the fair side of the plate to catch the ball, and things were happening fast, right? And obviously, this is part of the problem is the intent. And you could tell in his mind, his wheels were turning, right? He caught that ball. He knew he had to get to the foul side and give a lane. But just in the process of moving from the fair to the foul side, he blocked the lane. And he even got out of the way by the time Rutschman was coming in to cross the plate there. But it didn't matter.
When the play is that much, oh man, it's just the fact that you could catch the ball and then wait and then tag. Like, the guy was so far out. Like, it's not even a play at the plate at this point. It's a base running error. Like,
I think that MLB will address this rule in the offseason. They will probably try to clear up some of the verbiage in the rules to give a little bit. Like, that's the thing. You almost need to put it in the umpire's hands a little bit, which we just talked about how little we trust umpires, so I can't believe I'm even saying that. But, like, let them go basis by basis, because yesterday it was obvious there was an actual lane. Kirk wasn't down in the, to take your term, the butterfly goaltending position where you're blocking the entire plate.
Like, the five hole was open. Rutschman could have, like, let's just say the timing of the play was different, but the physical layout of where everyone was the same. If Kirk's standing right there with his legs spread, like, home plate wide open the entire time. For no time was that plate ever blocked, other than it could have been like a body check style collision at home.
Yes.
But he was close enough to home. Like, Rutschman could have slid between his legs and had easy access to home plate. So that's where the, like, well, there was a lane. I don't know. It's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah. Well, I think Joe Siddall said it best on Blair and Barker here, all friends of the show, that a catcher obviously was not the person who wrote the rule obviously had never spent any time in the catching position.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, this
is a rule that's going to be so easy to clear up. It's just like, it's just modifying it a little bit. But, like, we shouldn't see the outcomes of games completely affected by plays that the guy is obviously out on or obviously safe on, right? Like, this is just, anyways.
It needs to be addressed. I think you're right. It has to be addressed this offseason. I wish it would be addressed before the postseason, but maybe that makes more problems than it solves, because now there's a new rule to be interpreted differently. And do you really want that in the middle of playoffs? Probably not. I don't know.
So, former Toronto Blue Jay Brian Baker winds up getting into it with Teoscar Hernandez, and the bench is clear. True baseball fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Watching Teoscar Hernandez lose his mind was so funny, because it was just like Mateo of the Orioles and Vladdy are holding him back, and he's getting out of his shirt. And even once he gets out of his shirt, then he's like, well, I
don't want to go
I
anywhere.
Really am. Like, I'm not really going to go anywhere. Yeah. Like, that's the most baseball fight I've ever seen. But then everyone's like, why were they so worked up? And I listened to Brian Baker's post-game reaction after the game, and basically it was just like, it happened earlier in the game. I just didn't like some of the things that was being said or done, and I just wanted him to know that I could hear him. I don't think there's any animosity amongst anyone else. But the Blue Jays, like, for a second there, it looked like they were ready to go to war. Like, the way they had jumped over the bench, I was like, whoa, like, what just happened here? Can we bet on, Adam? Can we bet on if Alek Manoah loses his feel on a fastball this game? Like, if
that would
the
be a
rivalry
good prop.
is
Let's
back
check that right now. Man, no, we don't have a player prop for Alek Manoah hit batters, unfortunately. So
let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this game today.
Okay.
Orioles, Jays. Game 4 of this 4-game series. The Jays sweeping that doubleheader was so massive to ensure that they could not lose this series. And now we go into game 4 with our quote unquote ace, Alek Manoah, who has looked really good his last 3 starts, despite a little bit of concern from Blue Jays fans and even the media after the All-Star break about workload and just the way he had looked coming out of the All-Star break, not as sharp, not going as deep into games, but he's back. So what do the odds look like, Adam?
Well, looks like Toronto is the favorites to win. Everybody seems to be in agreement there. Through Sportsnet, if you see their ads, they've got Bet365 ads for all their stuff. You can get the Blue Jays at -145 through Bet365. But if you're line shopping through BetStamp, you'll see that CoolBet has the better payout at -139 on the Blue Jays. So if you're going to bet Blue Jays, go with CoolBet today.
Well, let's call it a wrap there.
Okay. Do you think the Jays win this game? What's your confidence level?
I am pretty confident. I would say 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
I like that Alek Manoah is on the mound. I think this team is about as fired up as they've been all year. Bo Bichette is looking the best he's looked all season. The game matters, man.
Look, we kind of burned through our bullpen yesterday. I kind of expect Alek Manoah to just really ball out and pitch into the 8th. I think he really has a good game. He's a big game pitcher, as young as he is. He's shown time and time again that he really rises to the occasion more often than not. Anyways, and I expect a big performance
Tim Meza,
today.
like before we completely get out of here, Tim Meza, holy crap, man! What a resurgence after coming off of the injury list. Just been dominant in that bullpen. It's changed the entire feel of that bullpen. Like, it's changed the way they use it. You can tell that John Schneider feels more confident going to Anthony Bass maybe earlier in the game. I mean, we watched in the Pirates series there with, I think it was game 2 on the Saturday, them go to Garcia in the fifth. Exactly. So you got to love to see that. All right. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
This is We'll even call it there for you. Adam and Scott suck at betting, right? Please, if you are going to sign up for BetStamp, use the code WALKOFF. It's truly appreciated. You help grow the walk-off community and get us closer to replacing our equipment so that we don't have weeks like we've just had.
There you go. All right. Good seeing you, Scott. We'll see you Friday.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Cheers.